Hi guys, so this is the last in the series of the 3 videos on media commercialization and the golden triangle. So we're trying to understand this final media topic in the contemporary issues section of the Socio-Cultural Paper. Again, as always, I'm trying to relate my points as much as I can and condense as much as I can so we can maximise our marks in terms of accessing mark schemes. As always, please subscribe and put any comments below. So we're going to look at these 4 subsectors. First of all, we're going to look at the reasons for change of media since the 1980s. It is just worth very quickly looking at the different types of media coverage because a lot of people always just associate with television, and we need to remember that we've got satellite television. Terrestrial, by the way, is like an old school term given to what used to be channels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know you guys can't believe that was ever just a thing and you could only access those channels and nothing else was available, but that is the case. Now we need to also be familiar with the term free to air or free to view. So if you don't have Sky Television and you just have a free view box, that's difficult to say really quickly, then that's when you can access a range of channels without having to pay an expensive subscription. You've got pay-per-view, which is a lot of things going on with the boxing and the MMA sort of stuff going on, isn't it? Printed press, newspapers, magazines, radio. I've put in there a couple of examples for you because not always are people good with their examples of radio. So I've got TalkSport and BBC 5 Live. We've got the internet, social media, and we've got cinema. Now, whether that be a sports related film or particularly in times where there might be the World Cup taking place, some cinemas will broadcast matches or different related performances from cinemas directly. Okie dokie. So we've seen some questions looking specifically at the reasons for changes since the 1980s, and I've taken and condensed this very much from a mark scheme. So just to regurgitate these points, we're looking at the reasons for change, and obviously we're seeing a massive increase in media because of the different types of media now available with influence from the internet. More opportunities to experience sport via this media and 24-hour coverage. Okay, if I go on Sky Sports News or Sky Sports in general, it doesn't just shut down overnight. It goes through and you can be provided with updates, 3-4 o'clock in the morning if you really were up at that time, or whatever the case may be. An increase of role within social media in promoting sport, less sexism and more gender representation. Now, that's not to say it's equal and it's balanced, but it's better than it was. More minority sports being shown, disability sports, Paralympic sports. Sometimes they can be different mark scheme answers and we'll get separate marks for those, or sometimes they're put under one umbrella term. Media has now more control over maybe start times. So we've covered this on our previous videos, looking at the time that different football matches and different events in major competitions like Olympic and Paralympic Games. And media coverage is now more global than ever. Okay, just to reiterate that penultimate point, you can see in the background, I've put here a picture of the Olympic relay. And if you look to the sky in the background of the image, it's pitch black. And I think I've regurgitated this in one of my other points, maybe on the golden triangle or commercialization video. They're often the 100-meter sprint and the relay events are some of the most watched and spectated of the Olympic Games. So they tend to schedule them at like 10, 9 p.m. because they know they're going to get the largest viewership numbers. But if you think of an athlete, when do they want to run and when are they going to maybe have their peak performance? Probably not going to be at 9 and 10 p.m. at night. So we're seeing ultimately that media is kind of dominating, taking over a lot of the choice that maybe used to be in place. Now we've got to look at the positive effects and negative effects specifically to media in relation to performers, sports, and spectators. So first off, let's look at the performers. So nice and easy. When you are an athlete and you are broadcast a lot by the media, this can help raise a profile of the performer. I've put a picture of Keely Hodgkinson, and who was a runner who did very well in the recent Olympic Games. And she's then almost attracted so much attention, and she almost was not a household name prior to the Olympic Games, but because she was shown so much during those Olympics, then now she would be someone that a lot of people would know her name and be aware of. It can help develop performers' careers. We've seen in the past this particularly done well by Olympic boxers. However, negative effects, if you're being shown in the media and all of a sudden there's a lot of interest on you, if there's something to kind of broadcast, relationship wise, family wise, deviance wise, sometimes we see when footballers have got new cars, when they crash their cars, anything like that can be blown up in the media. And particularly then when you become a household name, let's say Keely Hodgkinson goes into the next Olympics, there's going to be a lot of almost pressure or weight on her shoulders to perform well again because people have that expectation from the media hype. Next up, let's look at the sport. Once again, and I really like this because if we can remember the first point of the performer, which is to raise the profile of the performer, we can remember this next point really easily, which we can raise the profile of the sport. My picture at the bottom there shows a climbing picture. Again, climbing has only recently been introduced to the Olympic Games, and it's been broadcast so much through the media. There's now such an increase in interest, and that boosts, this is the second point, can boost participation in numbers. When we see Wimbledon taking place, which is the end of June, start of July, we see so many more people trying to play tennis because of all of a sudden it's on our television, we've got an interest in it, and all of a sudden we start to see parks and facilities being booked out by members of the public. It's fantastic. It can increase the financial revenue, sponsorship, and funding for the sports events and facilities. It can attract funds for international teams. It can give more coverage to minority and disability sports. This kind of point's coming up a lot now, isn't it? For example, the Paralympic Games. Again, and I like this, the negative effect here is very similar to what we've just seen from the performer. It can highlight the aspects which may be negative towards the sport. So we might be watching an England football match, and all of a sudden on the media, we're seeing maybe more attention because there's been fights breaking out or hooliganism taking place over than the actual event itself. More recently, we've seen parades when football teams have won particular trophies. I can think of when Liverpool have had the bus being taken around Liverpool, and unfortunately, there was such a nasty sort of impact going on through the spectators and some awful instances, and almost that got more media coverage then than what was supposed to be taking part for the sport and for that club, which is really sad. Put a quick picture here because I think this has stuck in my students' head for a long time. And this is the change in the Wimbledon facilities over 30, 40, 50 years, okay? Now, neither of these pictures even really include, or the second one doesn't really include the centre court, which has a covering and a roof on. So we can see firsthand how such viewership in Wimbledon and of those competitions has enabled Wimbledon to transform their facilities over what has been numerous years. Lastly, we need to look at the impact to the spectator again because of media. So, for the spectators, we see an increasing number of people watching various different sports, and rules have been influenced to make sports more accessible to a wider audience. So, the picture at the top of this is from what we call Fast Five netball, and the rules have been changed between this particular format. Fast Five because there's 5 players rather than 7, and they introduced the super shot. So they actually get more points from shooting within that almost pink band, and even outside of that pink band, which the performer is currently doing in that picture, than in what would we see as normally within that blue circle. And it has attracted more viewership to the sport of netball that would maybe previously been considered a minority sport and maybe possibly still is. Different types of media are now available 24/7. Sport is broadcast live all over the world, and really you've got to be pretty comfortable with a couple of different options and examples, having your back pocket to bring up in case you are asked for examples. However, as always, we've got those negatives. It can provide negative coverage again, that promotion of hooliganism within the spectators and within the fans. Lastly, the cost of subscriptions, the immense amount of cost now, not only to Sky Sports, but of course we've got Amazon, we've got TNT, which is what it's currently called at the time of making this presentation. I know it changes. And there's so many different things you can buy into now, because ultimately it is becoming such a commodity, which is a word we've used in a commercialization video, and people are trying to make money from sport. So that sums us up pretty nicely. Again, those do now tasks. Go and create those flashcards with the key information. We said previously that this information is very similar to the commercialization work, but to be the best candidate and get those A's and A stars, we need to be very secure on what is commercialization and what is media. Go and look out for those golden triangle and commercialization videos on my channel, and then as always, subscribe with help for other of your PE topics. Okay, see you soon.